Okay, so I've got the 2-brick propane forge fired up here. It's been preheating for about 20 minutes. It's a small forge. I call it a forge. It's called a forge. I don't forge with it. It's more suited for heat treating temperatures, about 1500 degrees. If I push it, I can kind of get forging temperatures in some smaller pieces, but it's just more for heat treating. I really like it. It's pretty good on propane consumption. I've got this. It's called the Bernzomatic TS8000. I got it at Home Depot. It's $50. It's a little bit lower heat output than if you buy like a Venturi burner for some place and build your own. But I calculated it costs about 70 cents an hour to run it at full blast. So for that reason alone, and that it works pretty well, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm actually kind of happy that it doesn't get up to 40 temperatures, because that just means it's more difficult to overheat my steel for the heat treating, and I like that. I've got a knife right here. It's been in for a quick second. I have to refilm this part, so I put it in there. We're taking it out. So it's hot right now. But what I'm hoping to do right now is to get a couple of thermal cycles in. I'm going to start with the normalizing cycle, and then anneal it. And so to normalize, I'm just going to heat it up to critical temperature, which is about 1475. And then I'm just going to let it air cool until it's black. And then I'm going to anneal it, which I'll do the same thing. I'll heat it up to critical temperature, and then I'll put it in this bucket of vermiculite, which is just insulates it, and it'll cool very slowly. Probably several hours it'll take to cool off, and hopefully that will refine the grain structure. And then after that cools, after a couple hours, I'll come back and I'll give it 3 more normalizing cycles, one at critical temperature, one at non-magnetic, which is 1425, and then one just a little below that. Hopefully that'll refine the grain structure. So when we clay quench it, when we etch it, we have a real nice quench line, and there's no alloy banding or anything bad like that. I suspect it's mostly cosmetic, and stuff like alloy banding doesn't really affect the performance of the steel as much, but if my customers are going to be paying several $100s for a handmade knife, I want them to have the very best knife that they can have, regardless if it's silly or not. So I go by color to tell when I'm at non-magnetic, and that might sound pretty hokey, but I think I've got it down to a pretty good science. I kind of laugh at the guys who think that they need fancy ovens with temperature gauges for simple carbon steel, because I just look for the decalescence, which the decalescence is when you bring steel up to non-magnetic and then a little higher to critical temperature. What happens is the carbon dissolves in the steel, and that's an endothermic reaction, meaning it requires energy, it absorbs energy, and so you can visibly see the steel, regardless of whether you see cherry red or bright orange or yellow. Everybody sees it differently. You'll see the color stabilize and just stay there. What it's doing is it's just absorbing energy. And then after that, when it's done with that process, you'll visibly see it brighten. And that's the decalescence. And it took me a long time before I was able to see it. And when I'm showing other people and they can't see it, what I'll do is I'll show them the reverse decalescence. And that's the process of the carbon coming out of the solution and grouping up again. And it's an exothermic reaction. So you take it out, and I see it bright orange, and then it'll cool off to a dull red, and you'll see it brighten up again and then cool off. And I think it's pretty cool. And that's the reverse decalescence. And so I'll try and show you that on the first normalizing cycle. I don't know if it's going to show up on this camera, and hopefully I'll even be able to see it going up, because I'm using more ambient light than I usually do, to try and get the camera to see some of these colors instead of just bright white, which I suspect it will anyways. I used to try and heat treat at night, but there's just something about needing the ambient light from a half-open garage door to be able to see the decalescence. I don't really have a sound explanation for it. I just can't see it at night. It's just monochromatic to me. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in and turn this light off, and I'll have my respirator on just in case. You know, this stuff does produce carbon monoxide, burning propane, and also spill oil on the forge, so it smokes pretty bad. So I just wear the respirator just to be safe, so I won't be able to talk. And hopefully I'll be able to record the reverse decalescence and get this show on the road.
There, I don't know if you can see that, but it's just a tinge brighter on the edge. And that's what we're talking about with the decalescence. There. And the tip. I want to make sure to have a nice even color. I don't know if it shows, but about an inch below the tip there's a little dark spot. It's a little cooler, so I'm just moving it back and forth, getting an even heat, not overheating any of the areas. Paying close attention to keep the blade near the handle area heated as well.